silly.
When we were growing up, I mean, it was probably 4 or 5 times a week that we would all sit down together as a family and eat. And I remember one particular night, Mom had made some kielbasa, and Scott was a growing young boy, so he grabbed, you know, the biggest piece of kielbasa, but not just that, he grabbed another piece of kielbasa as well. And so, you know, Dad said, no, hey, there's 6 of us to feed here. He said, hey, Scott, you know, you can't have all that kielbasa. You know what? Put some of that back. And so Scott, real frustrated, he takes some, he tosses it back in the pot, and the kielbasa, the stew juice just splashes everywhere across the table. And Dad starts to, okay, let's pray. And he starts to pray, and he says, dear Lord God, what do you do with the son who throws the kielbasa back in the pot? And starts praying about Scott throwing it. And the whole table just busts into laughter. Totally diffuses the situation.
So on Christmas morning, we would sit down, the whole family, we'd pass around presents, and Jim would start opening his present. He would be like, what is, oh my, and I would be like, is that for real? Is he really excited? Scott's like, he wrapped it himself.
Dad went out and bought his own gifts, wrapped them himself, and pretended he didn't know what they were.
One of my favorite saving money Jim stories was, again, comes home from the grocery store and he's got lemon cookies. And I said, oh, lemon cookies? I don't even like lemon cookies. And he says, neither do I. I figured they last longer that way.
I was 19 and I was going to run the Flying Pig Marathon for the first time, and Dad was going to run it also, and my cousin Julie had come down for the weekend. And so that weekend Dad decided he also wanted to take the cover off of the pool. And so if you know Dad, you know that this was also like one of the 2 times of year that he would inevitably utter a cuss word, is when he was taking the pool cover off or putting it back on. Those are the 2 times. Pool cover off, pool cover on. Gonna lose his salvation that day, is what he always used to say. So he is so mad the whole way downtown to pick up our packets for the race because there's tadpoles on the pool cover. He could not stop talking about the tadpoles. Like the 25-minute drive down, the whole time, those tadpoles, like he couldn't stop talking about it. So my cousin Julie, just in an effort, I think, to get him to stop thinking about the tadpoles, said, well, Uncle Jim, what, are you nervous about running the race tomorrow? And in true Jim Sutter fashion, instead of just saying yes or no, he says, well, the first time I ran the marathon, I was nervous because it was my first time. And the second time I ran the marathon, it was raining, so that made me kind of nervous. And then the third time I ran the marathon, I didn't feel very good, so I was nervous about running it then. And then this time, and he pauses, and Julie and I are both like transfixed. We're like, well, what about it? What about this time? He goes, this time, I just can't stop thinking about those tadpoles.
I remember Rod would always say, Jim's cleaning out the garage again, because as we would drive by, everything in the garage would be out into the driveway. We're like, oh, is it a garage sale? No, because everything would be swept out and everything put right back.
When he was in high school, the high school gym teachers would sometimes have a day where everybody would not dress out and they would have something fun. And they had a sports talk sort of thing, not really sports talk, but one of these quiz sort of things. And they had a bunch of celebrities, including people from the local radio station and gym teachers and some sports stars and stuff. And Jim was on a team with somebody who didn't know anything about anything. And they were like, if there were 10,000 points, Jim had 9,500 of them, and the rest of them were spread around. And like the last question they were going to have was going to be like a tiebreaker. And so they said very quickly, who is the athletic director of Marion High School? Jim. Mr. Rebar right down there in team number 3. And he blew him away. The guy couldn't even get his own name out.
The word is selfless. I remember when they first had Carly and Alyssa, and it was our Hilton Ed year, and I think that the story went that it was discussed that they could put the girls in respite, and they knew that the girls were a little bit rambunctious and pretty hard to handle, and Jim said no. I want to take the girls. He said because they may not ever have a chance to be able to go to Hilton Head. And I just thought that was so selfless.
I need you to be there for Maury. I'm just a spectator in all of this, and she's the one that's going to carry the burden. And she's going to need people around her, and I want you to come, even if she says, I'm not getting out of the house, I need you to come and get her out of the house. And the other night I even said, are you sure you don't want to stay here? I can go to the store. And she's like, nope, I'm going to get out of the house. I'm like, let's go. Push the button, run to the store. She was in her pajamas. I was a hot mess. And we were hopeful that we wouldn't see anybody that we knew, but we made it back in those 15 minutes so he could get his next boost. But at the end, all he cared about really was his family and Jesus. And his faith is inspiring. And great family man, and something that we should all aspire to be, like there for our families the way he was, and there for Jesus the way he was.
A quality of Jim that I think he had was dedicated. He ran every day and journaled every day and prayed. And I don't think he missed a day of praying with me before school.
I think my favorite thing about Dad was that he was always there as a father. Every sporting event, every baseball game, all summer, he was always there. And I remember riding in the car with Dad after a baseball game once, and there was a song that came on in his cat's cradle. And I remember listening to that song and those words and just thinking, not us. Not us. In that moment, Dad leans over and he wipes the tear off my face. And that was Dad. He was always there. Not just for me, but for all my siblings.
I guess it's kind of a testament to Aunt Maury and Uncle Jim, but like growing up, me and my siblings would spend so much time at their house, and like there's one shower, there are 12 people living there. The air conditioning may or may not be working, and it's 80 degrees, but it was our favorite place in the whole world. Just so much fun. Uncle Jim waking up in the morning, turning on the computers at 5 a.m. no matter how many kids are sleeping in the basement. Like, just didn't care, so laid back. Just like the definition of hospitality, so both of you guys kind of taught us how to do that, and it's my favorite place in the world.
He was just always so interested in every person. You know, when you were talking to him, like you knew you had his attention, like he would like form a connection instantly. And when Maggie graduated from school, Maury and Maggie and Jim and I, Maury and Jim and Maggie and I went on a cruise together. And Maury and I are kind of like get me my lunch, my chair, my book, I'm gonna lay here and read. And that's what we would do all day and with Maggie. And Jim would go to like every event on the boat, every art auction, every production in the evening. We would be like hanging out, and he'd be like, I'm gonna go to the Newlywed Game. It's starting at, we'd be like, all right, see you later. And he was never like, how come nobody's going with me? He'd be like, we were all doing our own thing. One time Maury and I were walking around the boat exploring, and we were on a totally different deck, and Maury's like, well, there's my husband laying over there with another group of people. But the funny thing was, when we would be, it was a group going to the dinner or something like that, people would be like, oh, hi, Jim. Hi, Jim. Like, how do you know these people? Like, oh, I sat next to them to tell the truth last night. I met them and I just kind of wandered through the casino and we struck up a conversation and then we like had, went down and had some coffee together. He like knew so many people on the boat. And if he didn't know them, he would still, like one day this couple walked by, I'll never forget, because they were a pretty hip looking couple. And he said, who are you? You guys are like the hippest couple on the boat. And nobody ever looked at them like, mind your own business, because he had a way of like instantly, like just, it was this kind connection. And they would just be like, oh, well, thanks, where are you from? Blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, Maury and I are like in our books, like, we went home knowing like 3 people besides our family. And Jim was like Mr. Celebrity on the boat. Hey, Jim. Hey, Jim. Hey, buddy, how you doing? Yeah, we're going to go to the art auction. It starts in half an hour. I'll meet you there. It was so funny. But it was just like he would just do his thing and feel so comfortable with that, and just his connection with people was amazing.
No. I think for me, like one of the more endearing things from father to daughter is the progression of my Jillian nicknames along the years of life. Like, Jillian to Jilly to Jilly Bean to Beaner to just straight Beans. Every time he called me, I never got anything, and I was never addressed as anything other than Beans the moment my dad decided that was my nickname, pretty early on in teenage years. So.
We used to, whenever we go to the grocery store, as kids, we would be running around, running down every aisle. Dad, can I get this? Dad, can I get that? And just in the calmest voice, he would say, "Son, you can get whatever you want, as long as you got the money."
What is this the theme song to?
So the phrase that Jimmy used to always say that I'll remember is, "Hey, hun." And that's it.
This whole time, through this, every time somebody came to visit, every time before he left and leave, it was let's pray. And towards the end, when he couldn't talk, a lot of times he would just say, "Dear Jesus," and he would look at me and say, "You finish it for me." So he just always, always, always was wanting to pray.
It's hard to know. There's a quote, I'm paraphrasing, I'm not quite sure who said it, but it's Abraham hasn't received his gifts of heaven because his nations are still multiplying. And that'll be Jim in perpetuity for all eternity. So it's fuller. Heaven's fuller and will continue to be fuller because of Jim's here.
We came down to Cincinnati and learned a great spiritual lesson. Jim told us that he had become a Christian, and we saw a lot of change in his life. And over the next several months, we talked more about it. And that is really the catalyst for Debbie and I becoming believers. The actual moment happened several months later, but Jim was really the first person that we saw model a convincing and compelling Christianity that had answers, and he had a very winsome way about himself. And so I think you could say there's a lot of spiritual fruit from that conversion and those conversations in 1980 and 1981.
Bye-bye.